Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us on this special program, special edition in which we will be elaborating on President Paul Biya's address to youth ahead of the 11th of February, the National Youth Day, which takes place tomorrow across the national territory. And we will be bringing to you different views with my guests, my panelists who are already here with me in the studio. And just briefly, just to let you know, President Paul Biya in his address to youth today, briefly, he began with the education sector, insisting on the creation of universities and other professional centers to ensure that youth in Cameroon can rely on auto-employment and not only on the government. As the president also discouraged the youth from giving up on their country and traveling to other countries clandestinely, sometimes losing their lives in the desert. President Paul Biya, in his address to the youth today as well, was very stern on deviance, especially drug consumption in the school milieu, adding that youth should not be deceived by the virtual life, but the youth in Cameroon should be able to live their realities. And at the end of his address to youth in Cameroon, President Paul Biya also mentioned very confidently that as he is counting on the youth of Cameroon, the youth also can count on him. Briefly, that is what President Paul Biya told the youth today in his address ahead of the National Youth Day, which is the 11th of February. And with me in the studio, I have four guests. To my right, directly to my right, is SHUNEH SIAKA. SHUNEH, thank you so much for coming. You are of the CPDM. We are going to go very fast, please. And just besides you, I have Mr. NOUMBISIEN Innocent. You are of the Popular Action Party of Ayapola Bine. Thank you so much for coming. And to my left, directly beside me, I have Mr. MBAH Raoul. You are of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement of Professor Maurice Kamto. Thank you so much for coming. And to my far left, I have Derrick. You're an economist and of the civil society. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. My very first question, I start with you, Mr. SHUNEH. You're of the CPDM. What actually caught your attention to President Paul Biya's address to the youth this evening?
Yes, Annabelle, what caught my attention firstly was the fact that we saw a president who understands that the future of every nation belongs in the hands of the youth. And we saw him take a social contract with the youths of this nation, that the youths can count on him and he can count on the youths. And we understand so very well that he is already projecting into the future of the youth. He capitalized on education and he insisted that the youths have to do professional education. We have decried this as an entrepreneur so many times. We have graduates who have nothing to show off, because they have graduated with degrees, they have nothing to show off, and they have always shown themselves away from professional education. We have heard the head of state today decrying and encouraging the youths of this country to adhere and embrace professional education. And he recognizes and legitimates the preoccupations of the youths and proposes stringent measures to see that the situation of the youth can be ameliorated, while recognizing the fact that the global crisis, the economic quagmire that our nation is going through, is a global crisis. It's not an issue of our single nation, Cameroon, and encouraging the youths to get into entrepreneurship, prioritizing the sector of professional education and auto-entrepreneurship, because the civil service cannot employ all the youths. So by the time they become job creators and entrepreneurs, this is going to boost the economy of the youth of this country, because that's how all other nations function. You see, we said 11,000 projects were financed by the government and over 35,000 indirect jobs were created, raising over 20 million. I think this is something that brings to the limelight the fact that he has the youth of this country and he's projecting the future of this country into the hands of the youth.
Thank you, Mr. SHUNEH. So if the youth had all of those, the professional training and all the accompanying measures, they wouldn't be traveling out of the country clandestinely. But that's okay. That's your point of view. NOUMBISIEN Innocent, you're of the Popular Action Party. Thank you once again for being here. And what caught your attention in President Paul in all what the president told the youth this evening? Briefly, please.
Thank you, Ms. Anne. Good evening to you and good evening to Cameroonians, especially my president, Jean-Denis Tabé. We are so familiar with President Bia's speech in such a way that we can analyze before listening to it because of continuous unfulfilled promises. He said so many things which is a repetition of what he has been saying. Creation of jobs, 35,000 jobs. I asked myself, who were those employed during the creation of these jobs? So President Bia's speeches is a contrary of his actions towards the youth. You can't say, let the youth come together and work closely with you. Why? There is an example for 40 years in power. In your cabinet, there is no single youth who is working with you in your cabinet. And you come here to tell Cameroonians, giving youth false hope that they should dream, they should not move out of the country, they should believe that they can achieve so many things with you. But I will tell Cameroonians that Mr. Bia needs to redefine his strategy with the youth, if at all he have the time to do so, because we, the young people, have fed up. If I say Mr. Bia have not done something at all for the youth, it might sound like an overstatement, but if saying so, I might not actually be representing the aspiration of the young people, because we lived the day-to-day experience out there. Just look at the recent so-called 5% increase in the salary of civil servant. The minimum wage raised from 38,000 to 41,000. Can an average Cameroonian live on that amount? So Mr. Bia is preaching virtue but practicing the vice.
However, the amount was increased from 36,000 to 41,000. It might not be what we want, but it was maybe insignificant increase, but there was an increase, so to speak, right? We are coming back to that. We are coming back to elaborate that more in the course of the program. And Derrick, Raoul, you're of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement. So what actually was the major point, according to you, in all of what President Paul Biya said this evening, all of what he told the youth?
Actually, Madam Aunt, when I listen to President Biya's speech, deeply in my heart, I can say there is no plan that he has for the youth. The only plan that he has for the youth is to recruit youth into the military to suit its political agenda. That is why, if you want to analyze the number of uniformed men that have died in the Northwest and Southwest because they want to meet the aspiration of the political agenda of President Biya, then you say it's off. That is not someone that has planned for the youth. A country that the youths are dying, he doesn't bother. Country that youths are leaving the country, he doesn't bother, and he will come on board and give a declaration just 2 pages. And I ask myself that when you listen to him, you see he talks about a vocational training center. I ask myself that
so that the youth can be auto-employed.
For the past 40 years in power, this is what he has to offer, and that is why if you want to do comparative analysis based on the CRM and the CPDM, you see we have been existing for 10 years. And right from the early beginning on our agenda, the plan we had for the youth is that we talk about this issue of putting vocational training. And I think that if President Biya is coming on board to mention that, I think that is part of the agenda or the project that the CRM has to offer for the youth.
But that's what the CRM has to, but probably the government has already put in place.
The truth, Madam, I don't want to maybe give credit to him for his lies telling, because actually we are in Cameroon, we can see what the youth are going through. So I take my own opportunity to say, we, the youth, are dying on daily basis. If we were to look at the situation that happened with someone like Martine Zogo, that is a young man that lost his life because he was denouncing part of something that
in the society.
That is it, denouncing something, and you see the system, part of his people around him, they have put in place a system that you extort money, and when you denounce, it becomes a problem. And those, when you see, it's the same thing that happened with Samuel Waziri, and that is why you see up to now an investigation was not put in place, and it gives a signal to the other those other in the system that if you open your mouth, you want to mention something, you want to condemn or denounce something, you will find yourself in this situation. And I want equally, because I want to take this opportunity to say, we should not be distracted on the point only on the debt. We should equally ask for the accountability of money that was meant for AFCON, to organize AFCON. Ask for the accountability of the COVID. Because when you look, if you are not very careful, you look the way they are trying to design this thing to make us forget about that aspect. And now the consequences will lie on the youth, because that same vocational training that that the president is talking about in Konsamba, if you are not very careful, there are some people that will still go there at the end.
I don't have enough money.
What I'm saying is there are some people that will still find themselves in that very institution, leave that institution and find themselves maybe the money that was meant to at the level of the vocational.
If I don't have enough money to start their own little enterprise. Okay.
So that is why I call on you. I'm taking this opportunity now to call on you that for us to change this system is to get ourselves massively registered into the electoral list, because if that is the only way we can change the system.
Okay, Raoul, thank you. Derrick, it looks like those on this platform besides Mr. SHUNEH, nothing about what President Pobia told the youth this evening caught their attention. Are you also, in fact, President Pobia's speech, it looks like, does it mean something to you? Did you pick something very catchy from President Pobia, something that the youth in Cameroon can hold on to and say, okay, there is hope?
Thank you very much. What catches an attention is what is new. Unfortunately, what the president said is not new. So that's the reason why people think that it did not really catch their attention. And you will bear with me that what the president has said is a repetition of several things he has spoken in the past. We would have expected him to come to tell us that in 1982, this is what I said, and this is where I am from my 1982 speech. This is what I said in 1990. This is how far I've gone. This is what I said in 2000 and all the like. That's what we would have expected. But what the president is saying, it's practically a repetition of a lot of things. Remember, the president has spoken of the fact that he said insecurity is stopping him from advancing with a lot of his plans. That is one thing he said. But the question we are asking himself is, the insecurity for 7 years is stopping him from his 40 years rule to achieve something. So what was he doing in the 33 years that he was operating as a president? If it is insecurity that is stopping him, maybe it is insecurity that stopped the Babaji route. Perhaps that's what the president is telling us, something that was promised far back. He spoke of more vocational training centers in the country. It is a good idea. That idea is very good. But where are the markets for us to market those products or those things that will be produced there? He talked of encouraging agriculture. What measures to encourage the agriculture when farms to market routes, and even our main roads are more like traps? And then he talked of more schools from primary to higher
universities
created in the country.
Yeah.
Our question is, what is the impact of the previous ones that were created? I should have been expecting him to say that, okay, this is what the University of Boya has. We have realized that they are training doctors who are grammar-blowing doctors. we expect now that the university should be ameliorated. This is what we are adding. We are adding a technological center to the University of Goya. We are adding this to the University of Yaoundé. But still, it is still not sizing down to anything. So the president has just repeated what he's used to repeating. And it's a problem with Cameroon, because at the end of it, we are still going to listen to this and wait. What we should be expecting that, yes, my children, yes, the youth, because what the youth should be celebrating, what is first of all the Youth Day in Cameroon? If you ask Cameroonians what the Youth Day is all about, they'll tell you that it is a day we go to the field to march.
Okay.
But is that what the Youth Day? We should be celebrating what the youth have achieved. And he talked about entrepreneurship, that we should boost our entrepreneurial skills, whereas the policies are on our knees and we cannot breathe. We can practically not breathe.
President Probias spoke about several issues. He spoke about deviance in schools and drug consumption and stuff. But don't you think, you're of the CPDM of the ruling party, don't you think youths get into all of those deviant behaviors because they are somehow, they don't see any hope for the future? That is what pushes them even going out of the country and all of those. When President Probias comes and is talking, they have the impression that they are just words which do not follow by action.
I will beg to differ with you. These youths are victims of manifestation of bad faith from people like the representative of the MRC and the CRM, who don't see anything. They are prophets of doom. They don't see any good in anything that the president is saying, because they have their secret agenda to accede to power through manipulation. And so they are manipulating the youths not to be able to see to good and educated information from the head of state. Let me substantiate. In Cameroon, the most expensive schools are schools that offer laptops and digital equipment to the students.
How do you
Our parents, look at all these schools around. The schools that say they will offer you a laptop and free data. We rush there and pay 1 million and inscribe our children there. But look on the contrary. In the United States of America, expensive schools are schools that offer practicality. They say agriculture is compulsory, engineering is compulsory.
But that does not come with accompanying measures. When you tell youth to get into agriculture, they get into agriculture with what?
The land structure what do you call village? That is where the problem is. We manifest and encourage rural exodus, giving the youth the impression that people who stay in villages and do farming are people who are primitive, are people who are poor. The backbone of every economy is not the reality. The backbone of every economy in the world is agriculture. Most of 90% of these youths will leave this country and go abroad when they refuse to do agriculture. Go and do harvesting of pineapple and cocoa in Spain, in Germany, in Norway, in Denmark. I've been there. And they refuse to do the jobs here and decide to go and do it there. They refuse to work here.
40,000 francs salary.
They refuse to work here and they decide instead of agriculture. What we are saying here is that if we decide to do agriculture and we do mechanized agriculture and do it proudly, we are going to make it in this country because we have the land, we have the fertile land, and we have the money power.
Do you think President Probia's idea of youth getting into agriculture and into other handicraft centers to get themselves auto-employed, self-employed is a solution to unemployment?
Yes. I think Mr. Bia saying the youth should get back to agriculture is one of the reputation, as I earlier said. For the last 2 years, the price of fertilizer have experienced a 100% increase. So if Mr. Bia is telling the youth to go and invest in agriculture, what are the measures taken to encourage the youth to go back to do agriculture? Yet the products, farming products, are experiencing a rapid increase in their prices. No farm to market routes. So these are things.
They have a lot of blockades, a lot of difficulties even getting into agriculture. That's what you're trying to say. And son Derrick, Probia also spoke about deviance in schools and drug consumption. I was trying to let Mr. SHUNEH know that maybe it's because of frustration and lack of, they don't see any hope. That is why youths can try to be seeking solace in those deviant activities. Are you of that same opinion? And also, President Probia said youths should not be deceived by the virtual world, but should be able to live their realities. Is it because the youth actually don't have something to do, that's why they seek solace in the virtual and also in the consumption of hard drugs and any other deviant activity?
My first advice is that anything deviant, life is first of all personal before being collective. So we have a decision to do with our life. But in the system of Cameroon, you know that Cameroon is a very dear fatherland that has unfathered the children. That's why you see a lot of things that are happening, especially when it comes to deviance. Personally, on an individual note, I do not encourage that, because no matter how bad the system becomes, I find a way to go around it. But when you are so much under a lot of pressure, you realize that you do things before you think. You act before you think. And I think that if you see the deviance in school, where teachers, it seems as if the teachers have to leave the chalk and start using guns in the classroom.
So, what do you recommend as a civil society actor?
Well, I think that in our school system, where they ask you to write a concours with 2 subjects or 4 subjects without moral education, when moral education has left the classroom, what do you expect? When we're growing up, they used to bring reverend fathers, pastors, to teach moral education to children. But that moral education did not have importance, because they will tell you that if you want to write a public concours, you have to write 4 subjects without moral education.
So to bring back
without moral education,
civic education, and
we need to bring it, because we will not be educating very intelligent devils. Because what we have in the system now are very intelligent devils that are killing the system. If the system does not give importance to morals, wisdoms, and then secondly, the parents too, because of the hardship in the economy, they have gone into business. And when you allow your children to be groomed by the society, they give them just everything.
Mr. MBAH Raoul, President Probia also told the youth today that as he's counting on them, that is how they too can count on him. Do you see the youth of Cameroon today counting on President Probia and his promises?
Actually, the system is designing it in that way, because, for example, I keep on at a certain point, I keep on asking myself, with the numerous problems that that is going on, what is it that the youth are sometimes cannot really, they can go and maybe, you see, to cast their vote, and they find it, giving it to somebody that hold them hostage for the past 7 years.
Youth should go and register, right? They should get into politics.
Let me use my give the analysis. Why I'm saying that sometimes even youths leaving the country and youths finding themselves, they need to. That's why at times I always advise you that they should pay attention. Even they don't like politics, they don't want to listen to politics, they should pay attention to some points that we give. Because if, for example, there is something in aspect of alcohol, that is something that I've noticed. The system, it is a well-designed system to put in place so that the youth now should be frustrated. Sometimes you cried about the problems, and you just find yourself saying that, Master, I just want
let me take one or two.
That is why, madam, you discover that even during the COVID, you discover that the system had to shut down the church, shut down bars, because this is how the system keeps on taking the youth, and you see somebody embezzling money,
Mr.
and that is why we are finding ourselves in this situation.
President Probia said the youth can count on him just like he's counting on them. But when you look at the youths, let's just be frank. Do you see them counting on President Probia for a better future?
Yes, any responsible youth haven't listened to what His Excellency Probia said today and wants a better future for himself and for this nation should be able to count on the youth, because there's a high rate of moral decadence, and most of the youth have ceded to facility. We are discouraging them. They should be able to work before they can earn. They should not seek to facility. I know it's ceding to facility. It's a cankerworm that has eaten into the nerves of our youth today, and we strongly urge and discourage them to stop it and be able to work, to be able to earn genuinely.
The president himself said so that youth should not get involved into activities which are very easy to make a living. They should work hard to be able to make a decent life out of what they do. Can youths, those President Probia spoke to today, when you look at our present context, should the youth be counting on President Probia after 40 years?
I don't think the youth should be counting on President Probia. We call on the youth to massively register themselves and get their voters card ready for 2025.
All right. Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming. We have really been caught up by time. Hope we are going to have more time to elaborate more on the challenges that youths in Cameroon face and propose solutions on how they can come out of that quagmire. Let me borrow your word. And viewers, thank you so much for being with us during this special program in which we gave our various viewpoints on some of the messages President Probia sent out to the youth today ahead of the 11th of February. On my platform tonight, I had Derrick, who is of the civil society. I had MBAH Raoul of the CRM, and I had Mr. SHUNEH SIAKA of the CPDM, the ruling party, and of the PAP. I had NOUMBISIEN Innocent, who was my guest tonight. Viewers, thank you so much for being there. Don't go away. Such a long or two will be here right away to also elaborate, give other viewpoints on President Probia's address to the youth ahead of the National Youth Day tomorrow. Bye-bye for now, and a happy Youth Day to all the youth out there.
Equinoxe Télévision, au-delà de l'image, nous rendons compte.
C'est la fête de la jeunesse camerounaise.